Hey, Bridge Parents, welcome to our Bridge Parents podcast. We are back, and I am very excited about this episode today. We're going to be talking about this book right here, which is called The Anxious Generation, and we have Dr. Shelley Groves with us. A lot of you guys know her, and so I'm going to put this back down here. But before we get into this book, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you, when did you get your doctorate?
I finished my doctorate in 2019. But I finished my bachelor's in education at Evangel in 92.
Okay.
Which was a really long time ago. I don't like to think about those numbers, but I've been in education one form or another since then.
Oh, wow. And so has most of that been with college age students?
Actually, I tipped the marker. I've been more than 20 years last year in higher ed.
Okay.
Before that was all K-12.
Okay, and so Dr. Groves is going to be with us on this episode and another one that we're going to be talking about college kids and helping our kids get ready. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about this book. But what do you like more? What is it that you like about working with college kids?
College kids I really love. When I first started teaching, I had junior high and high school.
Okay.
So I'm secondary.
Okay.
I was an elementary principal for 3 years, so I love playing with little ones, and that's a lot of fun. That's why I did the kids program for so long. But I love college students because they're kind of like, and I hope they're not offended, they're kind of like junior high students because they've got that energy, but they're a little more dangerous because they've got a license. But you've got that kind of a mix. And so I really love the college age group. I have a lot of fun with my job.
And currently you're at Evangel University, and tell us what you teach.
I am in the language arts department, so I teach writing classes and literature classes, and I still do some education classes. I did some education classes in the fall or in the spring of this last year because I've got an English and education degree.
Well, that is great. So she's qualified to be here, and so now we're going to jump into this book right here. And so I'm going to kind of I'll tell you, I don't even know if I've shared this yet, how I got to know about this. This book was everywhere for a while. Yeah. The Today Show, all the different shows, like podcasts, the Joe Rogan podcast, all over the place. I was seeing this book about the anxious generation. And for me, as a youth minister, I had noticed kids were kind of changing over the years, and used to, if you wanted to get into a public school, you would talk about an anti-drug message or no bullying. And now it has changed to anxiety and mental depression health. And mental health.
Absolutely.
So now if you want to, that's how you get into schools now. That's what you talk about. Right. And so I was like, why is that? What is it that has changed? I had some theories. So that's what brought me to this book. Yeah. I just saw it everywhere. How did you come to know about this book?
So at Evangel, I'm a part of a reading group for just faculty members. And so that group, we'd take a different book or a couple of books each semester to go through together. And so they had done, before I was a part of the group, they had done another one of Jonathan Haidt's books. But The Anxious Generation was the book for this spring. So we did it as a faculty group. We came together every Thursday. We'd read a chunk, and then we'd come and kind of tear through all of that. And that's how I got to know the book a little bit more.
So hopefully parents will read this book. It's a very in-depth book, lots of science behind it.
Yeah.
And so some of you may want to read it. Some of you might just want to get the Cliff Notes. But this is my opinion. I think this is, other than the Bible, this is one of the most important books and works that's been done recently to explain to us how we got to where we are with our kids. Would you agree with that?
I do, because, and the reason I say, and I mean, I teach literature, so there's lots of books I think everybody ought to read. But I love this book, especially for parents and educators, because it explains something I think everybody's we've all known it intuitively. We think something's different, something feels funny or off, but we didn't really know why.
Yeah.
And I think reading this book and the science behind that, he's a social psychologist, I believe, and so he comes at it from a really high perspective, 30,000-foot view of what's going on in our culture, and puts some really interesting and truthfully scary statistics behind the things that have happened and how things have changed. And so even if you bought the book and just read the end of each chapter, he does a really great summary to kind of summarize everything. I'll be honest, I do a lot of audiobooks. So I listen to it. I've got a hard copy so I could look at the graphs and charts to see it. He's got all of that. But it's practical because I think it's stuff that we can really learn from and use.
And I think for a lot of younger parents now, they have grown up in this, what we're going to talk about. And so it might explain some of their own anxiety or some of their own fears or things. And so it's interesting. So let's jump into it. Can you give us give the audience here that's listening just a quick overview on what is it that he suggests created this generation of anxiousness, anxiety, depression. What is it that was the catalyst of that?
Really and truly, it was not just cell phones have been around for a long time, but it was the onset of the use of the iPhone or a computer in our hands, so that we are constantly bombarded with everything at our fingertips. And there's a convenience with that. And I'll be honest, I use an iPhone, I got my iWatch, all the things, but we put it out there. And I love the way he begins the book, that he puts the scenario out there that we're going to take your 12-year-old child and send them to Mars without any research or any science backing on that, and see what happens to them. And basically, he equates that to what happened with technology and the internet when we have those smartphones in our hands, because nobody thought, what about how this would work with a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old, and how does that change the way they engage with the world?
That is so true. And what's interesting, there's a lot of graphs and a lot of data, and everything in this book, those graphs and data that show everything that he proves, starts around 2007, 2008, when this guy came out. I don't even know which one I have. Mine's old. I need to get a new one. But I don't. Jacob's over here filming. How many iPhones are there now? Like 16 or something like that. I mean, So we're way into this thing now, but everything goes back to that 2007, 2008 time frame, which is just very interesting. What is it about the phones, Dr. Groves? I almost called you Shelley, but I'm going to call you Dr. Groves. What is it about the phone that causes the issues, and what are the issues?
I think, for one thing, the focus that we have, because my phone is put away and it's silenced. I still have my watch that can constantly bing me and say, hey, I've got something else you need to see or pay attention to. So my email and my text and notifications from social websites. And so we don't ever get away. We're never disconnected. And it becomes almost an umbilical cord for students, because they feel lost without it. And as an adult, I didn't live in that generation or that mindset, but at the same time, I know how it's affected me. That if I can't find my phone, there's kind of a panic that happens. That what if I miss a call? Because I don't even have a house phone anymore, you know. And so that we're so different. But there's so much that pulls them in, and the technology that's there with the social websites, I think, is the part that's so scary to me, because it's actually science-based in how it will truly start to addict students to that they have to check, they have to be a part of all that. And our kids have never known life without it.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they don't know how to function without that kind of a device. And that's the part that the book was scary to me. I didn't grow up that way.
Sarah and I moved here in 2007, and we became youth pastors. And it was a few years before the iPhone became, and especially I think he talks about the self-facing camera. So now we're doing selfies and those kind of things. It was a while before it became mainstream, but I noticed there was a change. And what was funny is when we first moved here, kids would group up more. They would, if you went to Mustang North and your friends were at Mustang South, well then, back then Crossfire was just a natural place you would come. And what I realized over the years, now kids can FaceTime, they can text. There's not as much interaction. Right.
And COVID had a lot to do with that, I think.
Yes.
We've had to retrain ourselves since COVID. But I've noticed it in the classroom. We talked about it before. When I used to come into a classroom, especially on a college level, because I started college in 2005. So before all this, I had a flip phone. I was a newbie on Facebook, so I could talk to my students. It was a big deal then, and wasn't really one of those things I needed to protect like I do now. But I would have to come into the room and calm everybody down and bring them all together and let's focus, because they were talking to each other. There was engagement, there was laughter, there was cutting up, there was all this going on. And now when I walk into a classroom, it is silence, because they don't walk into a room and talk to their friends. They're all head down, which is just, it's still very jarring to me.
One of the things that Sarah and I were talking about one time is, you were talking, you never get away from things. So back in the day, whatever that is, when we first got here, if a kid falls in the cafeteria or does something, maybe people laugh. If there's a fight, maybe they talk about it, they laugh. You go home for the weekend, everyone forgets about it. You come back, you start over on Monday. Nowadays, it is you trip, fall, do something silly, someone's videoed it,
Right.
it's sent to everyone, you never escape it. You see your friends at a birthday party, you didn't get invited. Used to, you would never know about that.
Right.
Now you do. So it's just compounding everything.
Yeah.
And so, what is it exactly about when you're reading this, what is it exactly that's making kids anxious, you think?
There's always that pressure, especially in that middle school age and into high school, especially, even into college. Who are we kidding? It continues to happen. To engage, to be a part, and find your spot. But now it's not just with our friends; it's with everyone. And he talks about the prestige of being that person that's followed or liked, or the one that influences other people. Influencer is an actual career choice now. It's just bizarre to me when I think about it. And so I think that pressure is there. And if I don't measure up,
Gotcha.
what happens to me? Where do I fit in all this? If I'm not part of that, or if I compare myself to all these people.
Because it's easier to compare now.
Oh, absolutely. To everyone all over the world. If I'm not photoshopped or if I'm not cleaned up and I don't have all the images correct, that pressure is just crazy. And I think that puts a fear there with students that you're never going to measure up to those cleansed, perfect pictures. And it puts a lot of fear there to just be a person.
And I think another thing, he addresses it some in the book, and I've heard other people say, as a parent, now we know everything that happens everywhere. And so, a little kid falls off his bike, gets bitten by a snake, hits his head on the mailbox, and I'm just making something up.
Sure.
Well, we hear about that in New Hampshire. This is not a real story. But now we're like, so now we're scared to death of that.
Yeah.
And so now something that will probably never happen to us, we know about.
Yeah.
And so now we hear about everything. And so now
so
we're
you say
over
that. I remember when I was middle school here in Mustang, and it was the year that, and I don't remember their names. I should have this imprinted on my brain. But there were two girls about my age at the Oklahoma State Fair that were kidnapped.
Oh, wow.
And it made a big deal, and they couldn't find them. And I remember my parents at that point, that protection and that hover mode, nothing like we have today, but just that care and that concern, and parents talking to each other, and on the news, be careful where your children are, and those kinds of things. My parents would have never let me go to the State Fair by myself. But just that idea of protecting our children, and I think now, because we hear it so much more, there's a fear that's instilled in parents, especially parents that grew up in this generation, that we're afraid of everything because we know everything. And it's really easy to be overwhelmed by that. So it's logical, but it's kind of out of balance with what's really happening in the world where you live.
I think Pastor Rob one time, I think it was him, I'll just give him credit because he says a lot of smart stuff. But he was talking how what cell phones and social media has done, it makes us realize we're not meant to be omnipresent and omniscient. We're not supposed to, we can't handle everything.
No.
But yet these things as adults, not only are we handling everything, then our kids are as well. The other day, Pastor Doug was like, I think I'm going to get off of social media because I see stuff sometimes and I get mad about it. And if it wasn't for social media, I would have never known about it and I wouldn't have been mad.
Right. Right.
And, so,
and setting your own parameters, because I've got my time limits set on how much time I spend on social media. For me as an adult, and fortunately, I recognized that, but I was a lot more attuned to it after I read this book because I thought about my own thought life and where my own thoughts go, and I want to be careful with what I let have voice in my life. And I think for parents, that's our responsibility now to be careful about what we allow to have a voice in our kids' lives.
It's funny. I'm probably, I don't know, being a youth pastor, I guess, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit the table there. I might be a little, I'm just very, this stuff really concerns me because I saw how so many kids were affected by it. So when Cooper and I will go deer hunting, it's funny, I'm more nervous about him having a phone with social media than I am having a rifle. And I genuinely,
Yeah.
I would trust him and his friends more with that deer rifle than the
But
phone.
you've trained him on both things.
Yeah,
And I think that's a big part of that. And understanding that there are rules for everything.
Yeah.
And knowing that we have to be protective of that.
So the other thing is too, I think when we talk about training, there's also going to be a level of curiosity with kids. And one of the things I have realized, and we don't need to get into all this cell phone stuff, but I feel like kids are always a step ahead
Oh, absolutely.
of parents. And so
My dad's 83. When he needed help with his phone, he asked Jill when
Yeah.
she was 8. And so,
Exactly.
I mean, that's the perfect example, but I know she's not the only kid that was asked by a grandparent to show me how to use the phone.
So there's all this great information, and I would encourage, our parents. I think it's important to at least be aware of the things that are in this book. So one thing that's real interesting, though, is the author of this book is an atheist, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that's interesting. But tell us about. He has a whole chapter in this book
Right.
about during COVID, kids that were involved in church, for lack of
Right.
a religious, they did better.
Right.
So that's really fascinating.
And I thought it was interesting because you think about it in our culture, unless students are on a sport team, which I believe a lot of those numbers are declining. Kids don't
Absolutely.
participate in
Yes.
extracurricular activities like they used to.
And we'll kind of get into that part with the 4 things. For
Sure,
parents, but
sure. And so, but church, kids that were involved in church or a social setting, and it was very generic
Yeah.
with that, but he took an entire chapter to talk about spirituality, how kids that were a part of groups and were invested in a community kind of an environment where they had other people that weren't just mom and dad, but they had friends, they had other adults, they had other people that they were a part of in a society. They fared so much better because it wasn't just what was happening on a screen. There was real life involved, and especially when we got to COVID, and I think we all felt it. Even now, the video probably played on Facebook, but of our Easter celebration that we had that was on COVID, where we all sang together. And I watched it and I cried because of my life, and I'm that church kid, but I'd never not been in church on Easter Sunday.
It was a big
And
deal.
I mourned. I was so sad because I missed my church family. Kids that have that church family just do better.
And it's so interesting to me. So now you have, and I've never met Mr. Haidt, but brilliant man,
Yeah, absolutely.
super smart. We wouldn't agree on things spiritually, but yet he's seeing, hey, there's something to this.
Right.
That is, and I would say we would know the reason behind that.
Absolutely,
is because,
yeah.
Jesus is the answer.
Yeah.
So I won't sing the song, but so I want to kind of end with this. Just one observation, and then we'll get into the 4 kind of suggestions that he has. But it is funny when we started taking cell phones away from kids at camp. Like that was a rule. You go to camp. I remember the first year we did that. We had a bunch of Rubbermaid, like not Tupperware, but Rubbermaid huge
The big tubs.
tubs. Yes, thank you. The word tub was escaping me. And Pastor Riley, I think, was the ringleader. They set the alarm to go off at like 4:00 in the morning because I had collected all of the phones. But when we took them away, it used to be a little bit of a fight. Now the kids are like, "Here's my phone, throw it." But now the parents are getting upset because you mentioned the word umbilical cord,
Right?
Because it's like that, and so now the parents are like, I haven't seen my, and I get it,
Sure.
but it just shows that dependency that we have both ways, and so it's just something that's kind of funny. It's funny. Everyone asks me now that Sarah and I aren't youth pastors, so when camps roll around, are you not going to go with Cooper and Ramsey? And we're like, we really realize it's good for them to just be away and try to live for a week, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, so there's 4 things that he recommends, okay? And I just want to I'll just read through these real quick. And then now your daughter Jill is now getting ready to teach.
Yeah, she's at her first new teacher service
and so
day
we're going to
today.
talk about that.
In service today.
Okay,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so the first thing he says is to delay smartphone use until high school.
Right.
And so why do you think he says smartphone?
Because smartphone has the whole world in its hand with the internet. So you can access anything. And there are good things with that. I'll be honest, as a teacher, I'll say, pull your phone out, look this up. So I try to use it, but I also know that it can be a real detriment.
Yeah, and so our son has a Gab phone, so there's no internet, no social media on it. And so we won't get into the weeds and all of this, but there's a lot of different options out there.
Right.
And so or just the good old-fashioned flip phone,
Yeah.
but he can still text call. So he says to delay smartphone use until high school. So that's his first recommendation. His next one is to delay social media until 16.
Absolutely.
And that's
And I'll be honest, I'm an old-fashioned person, so I use Facebook. But I am on Instagram because my daughters are on Instagram, so I want to know what's going on, and my students, and so that's another thing. But that pressure of social media, it really kind of it ticks me off, actually.
Yeah.
That social media and those companies don't verify the ages of students. There's no, I mean, we can say that there's a rule there, but it's not enforced and you can't enforce it. So it's really up to the parents to recognize that there's some danger there of what it's a door you open.
Yeah.
And
Well,
once that lid is off or that door is open, you really
There's
can't
no
get it
going back.
shut. Yeah.
And I want to be, and we are the most influential people in our kids' lives. And so I think that's an important, we wouldn't just open up our front door and say, everybody come in.
Right.
But I truly believe you're giving your kids access to the whole world and
Anything
the
in
whole
the
world
world,
access.
yeah.
So he recommends delay smartphone use until high school, delay social media use until 16. And then this is interesting because this is something that's happening in Oklahoma. He suggests creating phone-free schools.
Absolutely.
And so, and I believe here in Oklahoma, we're moving towards that, or I think that is actually a law now.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it is. So you said Jill, who is so proud of her graduate. I can't believe it. She should be like in 6th grade still.
Yeah, I know. I
and
wish.
It was so fun. The other day, Sarah and I took Jill. We went to Freddie's, and she was talking to Sarah because Sarah taught her in 7th grade.
7th grade, right.
And she said, now I'm getting ready to teach 7th grade. And so it was just a really cool, it was just fun. And we're so proud of both of you girls. And so Jill's getting ready to be a teacher. And you said she's going to have pouches for kids to put their
she's got a wall pouch that when the students come into the room, the phones get put in the pouch for the class time. And she's already got it worked out so that she's got cords and they can charge while they're there, so they don't have to worry about, I've got to charge my phone. She said, I'm going to try and head it off the pass. Because she recognized, because she grew up in this generation. I mean, she graduated from high school in 21, so she's smack dab in the middle of this generation. And she recognizes the distractions that are there. And she wants to be able to teach students, but she also recognizes the importance of having that community in a classroom.
Yeah.
So that I know every student. And that's one of the things I love about education. I get to know my students, and they get to know me, and that becomes a family in a sense. And I know Sarah would agree with that.
Absolutely.
And so
And
you
you
can't
can't do
build
that
that
if
if they're engaged in something else.
And boy, and isn't that challenging too? And we'll get to the last point. That's challenging for my own family. We can't do that if we're constantly
Right.
We went on vacation and my kids are like, we're bored. Sarah's like, make shapes out of the clouds, count the cows,
Read a book, do something else.
You know, and it was fun because we just talked.
Yeah.
So the last thing he says is restore free play and independence in the real world.
Amen.
And so
I love that.
I would say especially for our younger, all ages, our younger kids too. That's just getting outside and playing.
Go outside. Go outside.
Yeah.
Get vitamin D. Go outside. We had a playhouse with the girls when they were little, and I would go outside with them. I wanted them to play. I don't know how many dress-up outfits I sewed through the years, but I wanted them to play. We did a library day every week in the summertime. I'm that mom. My kids had to read books. But we got outside. They took swim lessons every year. They were involved in sports and all the things because I wanted them to know what the real world was like. And we're fortunate because we have grandparents that were near. And so they were a part of older generations and saw what it was like to play like in the olden days. So I thought that was really, really important.
And that's what's so neat about church is besides the spiritual component of it. So the other day they had the workshop here for worship and production.
Yeah.
Cooper's he can't sing. He got that for me, but he's like, hey, I can run the camera.
Right.
And so he went to, and so there was confidence that was built in him that I'm going to get to do this and I can know how to do this now.
I know how to do
And that's
stuff,
getting out of the house. And that's another great thing about church is it affords so many opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
And if your kids come to church and they're getting in an argument outside playing volleyball, they're going to learn how to figure it out. And that's
figure it out.
good.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
Jill and Emily both started working and volunteering at the church and Vacation Bible School when they finished because I want them to know how to give back. And, when they were in high school and it was constantly coming to the church for activities and all this stuff. And even now, Jill's really involved, and so is Emily. She's on staff at a church.
Yeah.
They're like, we're a product of what you created.
Absolutely.
We're involved and we give and we do. And it's exhausting as a parent, but it's worth that investment because they're becoming the kind of people that I'm really proud of because they give back.
So I want to end with this. So all of this is narrowed down to those things: delay smartphone use until high school, delay social media until 16, phone-free schools, and then just restore free play. So, Shelley, if Dr. Groves, you know what I realize? If you're going to do these things, or if you're going to live for God, you're going to be different.
Sure.
You're going to be maybe feel a little bit weird. Cooper complains that he doesn't have an iPhone, but what we tell our kids, and I think this would be for everything: do you want to be normal?
Right.
Do you want to be like everybody else?
Yeah.
And so I just want to encourage the parents to know what God's called you to do, be who God's called you to be, and it's okay to be different and to put your foot down in some of these areas.
And I'm going to say this because I know people have probably heard me say this before, but when Emily was she was middle school with Sarah, and she got in the car one day, and it was middle school. Well, so and so's mom, so and so. I'm like, so and so doesn't live at my house.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I have to stand before God the Father and give an account of how I raised you. Mm-hmm. You can have a ton of friends right now, but you're only going to have me as your mom.
Absolutely.
And that's my job. Mm-hmm. So get over yourself. Mm-hmm. Parents, be parents.
Absolutely.
They can have friends, a lot of friends. But as a parent, that's your job. You are the only parent that is, you're the one that's going to be held responsible because you're the parent. Yeah. And so you can be friends later.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more fun if you've been a parent first.
And I 100%, and I need to hear that and be reminded of that as well where I'm at in my life. I just want to encourage all of our parents as we end this to have the courage to do what is right. We're not saying this isn't the gospel, but educate yourself, ask the Holy Spirit to speak to you, have information, make good decisions, but have the courage to do what's right, have the courage to set boundaries with your kids and just say, we're not going to do this if and
in a church community, other parents are probably going to be doing the same thing as you. And that was a huge blessing for us because we had other parents and say, would so-and-so let you do this? No. Yeah. Would so-and-so's mom let you do it?
Yeah.
No. And it was kind of a team effort, and that helps a lot.
And he talks about how a lot of parents would do this if they felt like
somebody else is going to join me.
Somebody else would do it. So
that's right.
Be the first one to jump out there and do it. So thank you so much, Dr. Groves, for being with us today. I know that you're going to be with us on another one, but parents, check out this book, The Anxious Generation. And as always, if there's anything we can do to help you, we might not have all the answers, but we'll figure out somebody who does. And like Dr. Groves said, there's lots of parents who have been parents before here. That's the value of being in a church that values all generations.
Absolutely.
So ask questions and get someone to help you. We love you guys. Have a great day.